Okay. All right, here we go. Let's go. The stream is live. And we'll hit the intro. Anything else we good? You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Raiders! Turn on a flashlight, flip a light switch, strike a match, just light something on fire. Welcome to Murph's Fan Cave from the Dago Dungeon. Join me, Uncle Mosh, as we join Raiders Fan Radio, taking a lighter journey into the dark side.
Okay, we're back. Look left, look right, Bolitnikov, a leaking pass, touchdown!
We miss you, we love you, and we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
I love when his voice cracks right
When you
now.
have
Just
great
so
coaches,
awesome.
then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
Intercepted by Khalil Mack. Touchdown! Raiders!
The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play. Well, I love this team. I think this team can win. I think this team can win.
What is up, Raider Nation? Thank you for joining us here for another fantastic episode of Raiders Fan Radio. Your old buddy Murph back here for number 85. We'll get to that in a minute. But first I want to bring in, of course, my uncle, my co-host, Uncle Mosh. Welcome, Uncle Mosh, to the show. Welcome to Raiders Fan Radio.
Woo-woo. It's so good to be back. 2 weeks in a row. Is this a record for me?
It might be two. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm excited.
So this is pretty cool. So we got a couple new things going on. So first off, welcome to the show, as always, to Raiders Fan Radio. Welcome, Uncle Mosh, as I already said. And then we are also broadcasting live on YouTube. We are streaming live, and in fact, we've already got people jumping in. Brad, Ron, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining us. I'm going to try my best, Uncle Mosh, to monitor some of these comments as we're going through.
Mike.
So we can try to. We need a social media desk, and we gotta get Tristan over here in the next episode to get the social media desk. But we're gonna try to. We're going to try to monitor that, so we'll respond to some of you guys as we're doing the show. If we don't, please don't think it's not that we don't love you. It's just that we're trying to do 150 things all at one time.
That you're watching a FUBAR live.
Yeah. Exactly. So try to do a podcast. So, but anyway, so we got that going on. Those of you that are listening to the podcast, thank you as always again for joining us there and joining us that way. So, all right, Uncle Mosh. So this is number 85 of Raiders Fan Radio, and we always like to name our episodes after a player. But first, before we get to that, I got a gripe, man.
You got to burn your saddle.
I got to burn my saddle, man. I got a little bit of an itch. With a bee on it.
They got cream for that.
All right, so
okay, hit me.
All right, so here's what I got. All right, we love to do interviews here on Raiders Fan Radio.
We love our interviews.
That is kind of our favorite thing to do is to do interviews, whether we have players, former players, media folks, celebrities, whatnot. That's one.
It's like our forte.
It's kind of like our forte,
yeah,
right?
It's our thing.
And one of the things that we like to do is we like to have a fun list of questions for those people that are being interviewed. We've asked, a different litany of questions.
We got some trademark things without being trademarked that we always do. We always say, hey, you got a word for Raider Nation. You got, tell us how you came to it. What's your family
origin
legacy?
as a Raider
There's always stuff.
That's exactly
and
right.
one of those things is something that's got that burr under your saddle.
That's right. So one of my favorite questions to ask folks is, what's your Mount Rushmore of the Raiders? And we spot you Al Davis. So
Absolutely.
You get to pick your three people that you feel, not necessarily your favorite players, not necessarily even the most impactful Raiders, but the people that personify what it is to be a Raider. What does it mean to be a Raider? And it's a fun conversation. So now look, we don't have any intellectual property rights to that question. It's something that just came out of the top of my head and something that I thought was a fun thing to ask folks.
It's a goof.
So here's where the burr got under my saddle this week, Mosh. There was an article that came out. I'm not going to reference it by name because I don't want to draw any more attention to it than what it already has. But they took that concept and wrote an entire article on it. And so that kind of irked me a little bit. But then it turned into a thing on social media, and then it became like everybody was posting their Mount Rushmore of Raiders. And so now look, again, I don't have any rights to that idea, and I don't begrudge anybody for having an idea and for coming up with something like that. But it would have been nice if they would have thrown a little bit of a link and been like, hey, we heard this idea on Raiders Fan Radio. Let's blah, blah, blah. Or anything like that, I thought just would have been cool. It would have been refreshing. And again, I don't own anything when it comes to that. I don't own any rights to it. And we talked last week about how things influence things. Songs influence songwriters.
Absolutely.
Podcasts influence podcasters, whether it's Kevin Smith or the Rebel Force Radio guys or Jay Moore or the Twit Network. There's a lot of people that influence what we do. But the idea of just kind of taking someone's idea and using it entirely, it kind of felt like a jip. Like I feel like if I was a comedian, someone stole my joke and went and did it at the Santa Monica Improv.
If you remember, right, and those that do listen to the show will remember when I did my bit as the Raider hater, talking about how much I hate Kansas City. I mean, it was amazing. And what was the very next week? Ving Rhames did a bit on the hatred
of Kansas
between Kansas City and the Raiders, and you and Sonny poo-pooed me. You guys laughed me off. So I just want to go on record as saying that I've been stolen from before.
Okay.
People don't know, but I invented the @ symbol. I invented plastic water bottles and the have a nice day smiley face. I dropped my mic.
Oh. I don't know.
Suck it up, big boy.
I know, right?
Imitation's the highest form of flattery, and whether it was their idea or our idea, hey, those people out there in Denmark, Mexico, the Philippines, the U.S., and Italy, they all know they heard that first.
In case you're wondering, those are the markets where we have actually hit the professional charts on iTunes. Unbelievable. 48 countries were heard, and those 5 we hit.
We can't even be professionals in our own life, but we can in those 5 countries.
Those 5 countries.
And we didn't even do the Denmark simulcast.
No.
In Denmarkian.
What do they speak? I know they speak Dane-ish.
No, Dane. That's what I had for breakfast this morning. Shh! Don't tell my wife.
Don't tell you what.
I might be having another appendicitis.
All right, so and then the last thing I'm going to say about it too is that, and you're right, and I will suck it up and I'll move on. But I just want to say that here at Raiders Fan Radio, we extend the courtesy that we're asking for, and I'll give you a quick example. Friend of ours, Kenny Stapler from over there at the Pillaging Podcast.
Oh, yeah, I love him.
Him and Che do a great show over there at Pillaging Podcast. We consider them friends of ours for sure, and have collaborated with them. And in fact, I think we got another one upcoming. Those guys have a website prior to their podcast that was called By Raiders Fans for Raiders. No,
sure.
By Fans for Fans.
By
and
fans,
our tag on our show was By Raiders Fans for Raiders Fans.
Right.
We came up with that not knowing they had that in use, but the day we found out that they had been using that already.
What did we do?
Pulled it.
Yeah.
And now we talk about being the lighter side of fandom for fans of the dark side. We have, and that was kind of turned into a joke for us, is that now we have 800 taglines from the womb to the tomb and all the other stuff. But point being, though, is that we kind of found that they really were using that and doing something similar. So we pulled it out of respect for those guys, So anyway.
Let it go.
All right, I'm done.
Let it go.
Done. All right.
Yeah. We got nothing else to get excited about.
This is the offest of the off-season right now, Uncle Mosh. You can't get any more off-season than the first week of July.
Oh, my gosh. It's the first day of July.
The first day of July, let alone, absolutely. So, anyways, let's go ahead and I'll get off my little my complaint soapbox.
Is your burr better?
Yeah, I feel better. I feel like if I exercise.
You vented.
Yeah, I vented, man. I feel better. So let's go ahead and
okay.
So I would say, Uncle Mosh, tell us how people can contact the show, but don't answer that because I got you already.
Hey, boys and girls, this is Uncle Mosh. That's right. Somebody actually claims Sonny and Murph. These two. Check them out on their website, RaidersFanRadio.com. You can friend them on Facebook at RaidersFanRadio, or you can like their fan page at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast. Hey, I don't tweet. I don't even know how to use a Twitter. All right, I got the Twitter and the Facebook. But, it's just like that fancy lawnmower in my garage. I hire a kid to use it. Hey, nonetheless, keep up with us on Raiders Fan Radio and all those other things. I'm doing the best I can. Man. Call them. Leave a voicemail if you want. Go old school. 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Hey, do this. Please subscribe and rate Raiders Fan Radio on iTunes. You can listen to the show on all podcast services like Stitcher, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, and many, many more. Okay, am I done? Did I say all the stuff I was supposed to say? All right, I'm out of here.
How many times have you checked your Twitter and or Facebook since you started using them?
All
right. So
next question. We need a cricket sound. We need that cricket sound.
So welcome to episode number 85. I've already said that 800 times, but forgive me. I'll say it again. Episode number 85, Uncle Mosh.
What number?
85.
Wait a minute. That's letters H and E.
Oh. You know what's funny?
Tell me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
85 H-E.
Okay, that is the first two letters of Hayward Bay.
Absolutely.
Who wore number 85 for the Raiders.
Absolutely. I did my homework.
And the commissioner coming to the podium. Could we have a shocker here? They go to a receiver other than Crabtree. It's possible.
Oh, I think it is possible. I think it's either Monroe or one of the receivers, and Al's a height, weight, speed guy.
With the 7th pick in the 2009 NFL Draft, the Oakland Raiders select Darius Hayward Bay, wide receiver, Maryland.
Talk to me, Mike Mayock. Talk to me.
I took him in my mock draft, even though I got him rated as a late one, because that is a classic Al Davis pick. He is a height, weight, speed guy, the fastest guy at the combine. My issue is inconsistent hands, and to me, that is way earlier than he should have been picked.
Gosh, those are some bad memories, man.
My word.
Those are some ugly memories. All right, so we're not gonna name the show after that guy, though. I can't do it. Now, in fairness to Darius Hayward Bay, he had inconsistent hands and he found his way out of the Raiders quickly. But in contrast to Michael Crabtree, just in fairness to him, and I thought it was an interesting study. When we look at, because everybody was ready for the Raiders to pick him, right?
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, Hayward Bay showed up. Okay. But it was an Al pick, and so we were all like, as shocked as we were by it, it was also like well, that's an Al pick,
Alism.
right? So when you look at Hayward Bay, started off slow. In fact, I remember right, he was kind of injured early on. But by 2011, so drafted first year 2009, by 2011, he had 64 receptions, 975 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That same year, Michael Crabtree, now granted, 09 and 10, he had stronger years than Crabtree did, but by the time they both reached 2011, Crabtree had 72 catches, so more catches, but less yards, 874 and 4 touchdowns. So, like, as we got to 2011, it was like, oh, they're kind of tracking similar. Like, this is not bad. Then he fell off a cliff. Though then Michael Crabtree's career continued to skyrocket.
Contract years.
Continued. I just made up a new word. Continued.
You invented something.
I did.
If there's an article about continued, we got to call Mikey because it's a conspiracy.
All right, so after that continued it on in 2012, Crabtree had over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, and then went on to he got some injuries with the Niners and whatnot,
Sure.
but then came back to the Raiders but then came over to the Raiders, and by 2016 he had 1,000 yards with our team, and by then Darius Hayward Bay had 100 yards for catching for the
when he was
Pittsburgh
done,
team.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then 2017 looks like he had 2 receptions in 2017 for 47 yards. I think he's about done. I don't even know if he's on a roster anymore or not, but I just thought that was interesting because he actually came in wearing 12, but then went to 85 after the first year, and so he was kind of, when I heard the number 85, that's the first one that popped into my head.
Right.
But that's not who we're going to name the show after, Uncle Mosh.
Man, are we that hard up for time?
It's July. It's the off of the off season. It's the offiest of the off seasons, Mosh. All right, so we're going to go with number 85, Carlton Oates.
Crickets.
Come on, you know Carlton Oates.
Carl, we used to call him.
All right, listen, we like to celebrate the 1967 AFL championship team here on Raiders Fan Radio. We've talked about them a lot. Some really cool players came out of that, or some really dominant teams. Of course, the Raiders came up short against the Packers in the Super Bowl. But when it comes to players on that, Carlton Oates, wore number 85, was a defensive end for that team. And now back then, Mosh, they didn't keep stats on defense. So it's kind of tough to determine where he kind of ranks amongst his fellow defenders and even the defenders of now, because they didn't keep sacks back then. They didn't keep a lot of them. But Carlton Oates, let's celebrate at least the achievement that he got them, or was part of one of the big reasons that got the Raiders to that 67 AFL championship. He played for the team from 1965 to 1972. He was a 16th round pick in the NFL draft and a 21st round pick in the AFL draft. He was drafted by both teams, which I thought was very interesting. But he's still alive today, 76 years old, lives in Polkinghome Village, Florida. So we're going to celebrate Carlton Oates. Here's number 85 on Raiders Fan Radio.
Come on, Carlton.
Isn't that cool?
That's very cool.
All right, now here's where it's going to get a little fun. And I'm gonna throw you this, Mike.
Oh, jeez.
I know, right? Carlton Oates, is he the most famous Carlton and or the most famous Oat? So we're gonna go over. Give me, Uncle Mosh, a second here, and I'm gonna give these to you. Who am I?
Okay.
Okay. We're going to start off with Carlton's. I was born December 26, 1947. My MLB debut was September 8th.
Carlton Fisk.
You got it. Carlton Fisk, inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in the year 2000. That is Carlton number 1. Carlton number 2.
Come on.
Steve
Oates. Steve Carlton. Carlton Steve.
Dang name, you idiot, Murph. Big dummy.
This is why we're number 1 in Denmark. They don't get the joke. They just hear the laughter.
Oh, man. Inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame, 1994. Oh, my gosh. Played for the Cardinals. You know Steve Carlton is. Everybody listening to this show knows who Steve Carlton is. All right. But I'm going to say, Mosh, that is not the most famous Carlton.
Oh.
No. Yeah, you got it?
Do I have to dance?
Wait.
Come on.
It's not unusual to be loved
by anyone. Okay,
I can't play anymore because I don't want to get in trouble from iTunes. All right. Carlton Banks, born August 4th, 1974. Occupation, Bel Air Academy student. Manager at the Peacock Stop at Princeton University. Born to Vivian and Philip Banks.
Oh, that would have been a good trivia question. What was her name? Aunt Viv.
Yeah. Brother to Hillary Banks and younger sister Ashley Banks, and of course, cousin to Fresh Prince of Bel Air. So yeah,
nice.
So there you go, Carlton Banks. So I'm gonna say Carlton Oates, not even the most famous Carlton.
No, but the most famous 85 for our purposes.
Absolutely. But Mosh,
is there more?
Okay, you know what? Let's just do this because this is getting into that territory. So let's go right here.
Murph's Black Hole.
Yes. I have missed the Black
Internet.
A journey that begins where everything ends.
If you're new to Raiders Fan Radio, we do a segment here called Murph's Black Hole, the Internet, and this is where I just kind of go down the rabbit hole of things. Like one thing will lead to another. Like a man that played for the Raiders that wore number 85, that's name is Carlton Oates, and I looked up famous Carltons, and I thought, well, then while I'm at it, I might as well look up famous Oates. So, Mosh, who am I? I'm not going to give you his name this time. I was born, I'm not going to say his name, on July 5th, so getting ready to celebrate.
On Thursday.
Yeah, 1928 in Muhlenberg, Kentucky. Okay. American actor best known for his performances in several films directed by Sam Peckinpah, including The Wild Bunch and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. He starred in numerous films in the early 70s that have since achieved cult status. Such
Lee
as
Marvin?
Nope. Such as The Hired Hand, Two-Lane Blacktop, and Race with the Devil. He also portrayed John Dillinger in the biopic Dillinger, and as a supporting character, U.S. Army Sergeant Hulka in the military comedy Stripes, starring Bill Murray. Who am I? The guy that played Sergeant Hulka.
What is his name?
Take it easy, Francis.
Yeah.
Warren Oates.
Warren Oates. Touch my stuff, I'll kill you. Yeah. What a great movie.
Yeah, Stripes is amazing. That's a fact, Jack.
That's awesome.
Oates number 2. I'm just saying there's more famous Oates than Carlton Oates.
All the people on podcast couldn't see me dance.
No, but they saw you on the YouTube
YouTube
live video.
Yeah,
there we go. All right.
go.
So I'm 70 years old. I was born in New York City. I am known for my blue-eyed soul and pop rock. Come on, you ought to get it right off of there. R&B and soul guitarist, singer, songwriter, record producer, best known as half of the rock band
Hall & Oates. Yeah.
John Oates. There's your Oates number 2. More famous than Carlton Oates, number 85 for the Raiders. And last but not least, Mosh, your last Oates. Who am I? I'm a subsidiary. I was born in 1877 as the
Quaker Oats from General
Quaker,
Mills. Yes.
Quaker Oats. Quaker Oats, arguably more famous than
Carlton.
Carlton Oates. All right. Are we done with that now?
Yeah. Is it time for a commercial?
It's time for a commercial. Welcome to episode number 85. You guys rock.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? This is EJ Manuel. You're listening to Raiders Fan Radio. Super excited to get this season back rolling, and I hope you guys are having a great offseason.
What's that music?
That's Sonny stuff. That's some of the stuff he's been working on with his students.
I like it.
It's good. Huh?
I need a flowery drink with an umbrella.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's relaxing.
It's summer stuff.
Yeah, summer stuff. All right, so today on Raiders Fan Radio, I guess I could tell you what you're going to expect on the show now that we're, 22 minutes?
Yeah.
That's kind of like our spot, the 22-minute spot. That's kind of where we start to hit our Raiders stride. So there you go. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the Khalil Mack holdout. I know we talked about it last week, but it kind of continues its theme throughout this offseason, and some really good information that has come out this week on that, at least to draw some context to the holdout. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a little bit about the offensive line, kind of some things that came up this week. It's some really fun information that we are going to go over and dissect about the offensive line.
I have a trivia question for you when it comes to that, too.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay,
All right, I look forward to it.
We'll see.
No, you asked me a question.
Yeah, I get to ask you.
I
get to surprise you with an Oaks.
Put me on the spot, Oaks. Yeah. Then we're going to get to our interview this week. Our interview this week, Uncle Mosh, is going to be with Len Shapiro. Len is the executive director of the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame. So he is the guy that is the curator for this museum. They're getting ready to open their physical location in Alameda. Right now, you can go online and you can see and hear a lot of really cool archived radio footage from the Bay Area. For our interests here on Raiders Fan Radio, we talked a lot about Bill King. We talked a lot about Greg Papa. We talked a lot about the history of Raiders broadcasting, and it was fascinating. Len is one of those guys that's like, I mean, he just got it all in his head. Like, he knows the years, he knows the people, and he can just recite them on cue, and it's amazing. Very, very informative interview, especially if you're interested in broadcasting. Then last up, we're going to do a return to excellence. So we're headed into the home stretch of the return to excellence. We're going to do track number 9, which is crushing the Chiefs. So and then that'll be it. And then we'll be on our merry way.
On our merry way to 86.
On to 86. So that'll be it here for episode number 85. All right, Mosh. So this week, the Khalil Mack thing is just kind of running rampant all over Raider Nation, right? Like, I mean, we're all interested in it. We all want to wait and see what's going to happen. We talked about the impact potentially that the 100 greatest players could have on it. We saw that I forget what the guy's name off the top of my head, but one of the big defensive linemen from the Minnesota Vikings signed his big contract. We were wondering if maybe that would kind of start the dominoes because now the market's starting to get established. And then here comes this week our good friend Steve Corcoran, friend of the show, former guest on the show. He runs a phenomenal website. We don't get paid a dime. We don't have any direct affiliation with the guys at SnakePit.com. But I can tell you, Raider Nation, if you want to get accurate Raider news, very timely Raider news, check these guys out. It's a subscription service. I subscribe to it. I freaking love it, man. I go to them for all of my news. I know you do as well. And I can't recommend them enough. And again, that's not any kind of an official endorsement. It's just the opinion of a one Raider fan talking to other Raider fans. Check out RaidersSnakePit.com. And this week, Mosh, Steve had a great article on Khalil Mack's kind of holdout. And again, what the context, what does that mean? Where are we at now? Where can we be? And where could we end up? You want to tell us a little bit about it, about what you thought about that article?
Well, you know, I like what Steve writes. Okay, he prefaces it with history. He prefaces it with his knowledge of the way things are going. One of the things that he was talking about is that in the duration of Mac's holdout, if it goes, you know, he equates a lot of the holdout to the expected outcome of games that we're going to play. I think he's a little long on Mac's holdout. He's got him like he picks game week 10. As like what? As like if Mac holds out through week 10, we can anticipate winning this many games. We would be affected adversely through this many games. That's where my big disagreement.
So he's saying like if we don't get him by week 10, we're not going to get him at all.
No, he's saying that if he comes back in week 10,
it's okay.
We know that if he does, he'll have, you know, this. We can look at this. Being the way we were affected adversely.
Oh, I got you.
You know, like we would have won this many games with him, without him. You know, week 10 is November 11th.
That's a long time to go, man.
That's 11/11. Don't get me started on that one, okay? You know, and that's 11th letter of the alphabet is K, and for Khalil. But anyway, I'm not Mikey. Anyway, but I'm just saying, I just think week 10's a little long. And that's just my uninformed opinion. Now, granted, the stuff that he's put out there about how it will adversely affect our season is true. I mean, it's Mac. You know, we need him for sure.
Yeah,
I just don't see it going that long.
I don't either.
I don't either. You know, and that's my big thing is I can't buy into him holding out until the 10th week of the season, till November.
Well, was the tone of the article saying that he thought it was going to go that long, or that's just like, look, this is the absolute worst case scenario that if this is as bad as it's going to get.
Yes.
Like, and hopefully it won't, but look, Raider Nation, it's not going to get any worse than this point right
exactly.
here.
Exactly. And he did say some stuff like, you know, obviously what we've all talked about, Mac's going to come in tip-top shape. Mac's not sitting around eating donuts thinking he has an appendicitis. he's working, you know, and so I don't know.
So I think it's important for the Raiders and it's funny because the counter, right, whether it's Aaron Donald or whoever else, they're kind of waiting for the same thing. But it's important for that market to get established sooner than later. And hopefully, gosh darn it, what was the guy's name? It's killing me now. The guy from Minnesota. And in fact, I even tweeted it out this week too when that happened because I thought, okay, this is good. But anyways, it's important for that market to get established because I think the quicker that happens, the quicker you can determine what the value is, right? Then the agents can go to work and start negotiating and like, but until that happens, like they can't really start because don't you feel like one's going to wait for the other?
And we talked about that last week, you know?
Yeah. Talk more about it this week.
Yeah. No. I mean that's what that was our big thing last week was we said if it's gonna happen. It's going to happen in relevance to those other holdouts and who's going to get paid more and who's going to, like when you brought up the top 100. And I mean, there's stuff that's going to happen. One of the things that that Steve was saying, and the reason he picked that 10th game was that's like the drop-dead date for both sides.
Okay.
Because without Mac going into the last 6 games of the season, looking at the games, the prospective wins and the prospective losses that we would have, we're going to need him back by then. So,
all right, so here it is. The Vikings announced Wednesday they signed defensive end. I believe you pronounce it Danielle. It's spelled like Danielle, but I believe you pronounce it Danielle Hunter to a contract extension, reportedly a 5-year deal worth $14 million per season. So that's a pretty hefty contract. I think Khalil's going to go probably 20 plus. I think that's kind of the overall assumption. Some people are even saying he could be in the 25. He could be in like quarterback range. It wouldn't surprise me, but I think but still $14 million a year. That's a lot, especially for a guy that's still playing through his first contract. I think this is what he's entering in his 4th season, I want to say. I mean, he's only 23 years old, this guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, gosh, he may not even be that. I know that's how old he is, but that ain't even be how many seasons he's played. I'm looking here. This is not good radio to be researching while you're reading. But anyways, point is, though, the market's going to get established by guys like that. That's important for the MAC development. And I'm with you, Mosh. I don't think that we're going to see it get nearly that far. Frankly, it's probably going to get done around the time of training camp. Don't
Absolutely.
you feel? Don't you feel
that's
like
the feeling I'm hoping for?
Yeah,
like
least. Second, third game of the year, or game of the preseason, somewhere around in that range. And I think that if that happens, then we'll be in good shape. All right, let's check out one of our comments here. Raider Brandon, wouldn't be better to sign Mac first since the next guy it's going to demand more, similar to Carr. That's a great point. But I think that yes, for the Raiders, it makes more sense for them to sign him. But for the agents, they're trying to maximize the deal. They want the next deal to get done first so that market gets set and then they can ask for more. So I agree with you, Brandon, and hopefully that's what happens, because if the Raiders are the first one to sign, then that's just that much quicker that we get Khalil Mack into the facility. So I'm with you for the Raiders' purposes, definitely. But the Rams are thinking the same thing. So that's where this waiting game comes from, as we got these two kind of forces working against each other.
I hate to belabor the fact that we don't know what's going on in the negotiation room, but you have to look at, you don't want to rush to signing. You got to look at it from both ways. You don't want to rush to signing because you don't want to have a disgruntled employee who thinks maybe I signed too early, and how many times have we seen people hit the big contracts and their play falls off? Not saying that that's Mac's character at all, but without knowing what's happening in the room, we got to think the positive. So we're thinking that he's holding out to see what he can most benefit himself. But again, we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Absolutely. All right, let's see. We got one more. Let's do one more comment here before we move on. Careful Crosser says, any players you think are going to get cut and surprise most of the fans? I think Donald Penn, man. And I'm going to use that as a segue into our next segment here. So we're going to go ahead and hit a break, and then we will be right back, and we're going to talk about that. Who do you think? What any surprise cuts might be?
Hey, this is Steve Corcoran of RaidersSnakePage.com, and you're listening to Sonny and Murph Raiders Fan Radio. They're the best around.
All right, Uncle Mosh. Interesting that we got the question about any surprise cuts. Yes, I think we are going to see a couple. I think Reggie Nelson's just waiting for it. I think if Obi Melifonwu, now friend of the show,
Absolutely.
Obi Melifonwu, shows out in practice and in camp, I think that there's a really good chance that the safety room's going to get awful crowded, awful fast. And when you have an aging guy like Nelson who has had questionable play at times, yes, I understand the ties back to Paul Gunther. I understand that there's a precedent set there. But once you transfer that knowledge from the KG veteran onto the younger guys, he kind of loses his value a little bit. And I think that Reggie could be one of those kind of guys. And I just saw it pop up here on the chat. Raider Knoll, Donald Penn is going to get cut. I agree.
Yeah.
I absolutely think that's the guy. I think that's the one that's going to surprise some folks. I think Donald Penn's the guy. And Mosh, when we look at how the contracts break down and when we look at what the Raiders have on the offensive line, surprisingly, we have a lot of depth, don't we? And not only do we have depth, but it's already going to be under contract, legit contracts, nice contracts for these guys for between the next 2 to like 4 years, right?
It's team contracts. When you look at at contracts, are they pro player or are they pro team? Man, these are pro team contracts. These are building for the long run. And I got, I agree. Penn has been on Q-Dog's hit list for how long?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean forever. So yeah.
So when we look at the list here, so under contract through 2020 right now, Rodney Hudson is under contract until 2020 before he becomes a free agent.
Okay.
Vidal Alexander until 2020. John Feliciano till 2019. Now, John Feliciano's kind of been a rotational guy. He's wanting to be more in the lineup, and who doesn't want to be, right? Anybody in the league wants to be a starter. But when you got the two amazing guards playing in front of him, Gabe Jackson and Kelechi Osemele, there's just not a lot of room for old Mongo Feliciano, right? So he might be gone. So he's the guy, the shortest tenured lineman coming up. And frankly, we don't really have a huge bit of room for him. Gabe Jackson, as I mentioned, he is under contract until 2023. Denver Kirkland, Raider Nation, he comes up in 2019, but he's a restricted free agent. So the Raiders are going to have the rights to his contract before anybody else. So if that's somebody that they want to keep around, they certainly can. I love it when the Raiders use Denver Kirkland because he comes in a lot of times as that sixth lineman, plays that tight end spot. I love it, man. That's a great-looking offense, great-looking power offense when they use Denver Kirkland. Anyway, so he's a restricted to 2019. Osemele isn't a free agent until 2021. Andrew DePaulo, all right, he just signed this year, the highest-paid long snapper in the league. He occupies a tackle position, unlike John Kondo, who used to occupy a tight end position. DePaulo's going to play for the Raiders until at least 2022. Then we got the rookies, Colton Miller, Brandon Parker. Who am I missing? David Sharp. David Sharp, and not until 2021. He was drafted to lock down maybe one of those end spots. Look, we hadn't really seen the full potential of David Sharp. If we're going to see it, we're going to see it under Gruden. Jalen Ware, he was under contract till 2021, but I believe he's gone now. I believe the Raiders have already cut him. So who's kind of odd man out on your list, Mosh? I know who's odd man out on mine.
So, I got to look at here and I got to go. Okay, so I got all the numbers in front of me, 22, 21, 23, 19. How many of these are going to coincide with the move to Vegas?
Ooh, that's a good point.
That's a
good point.
If you're talking getting these developmental players, and you hate to use that phrase, developmental players, but how many of
the
them,
younger guys are, especially the two tackles that we drafted?
Are.
You could say Colton Miller's a plug and play, but Parker certainly is going to be developmental. And then you look at guys like you said, like Kirkland, David Sharp. They're developmental. I think that's fair.
And it's going to be coinciding with they're looking at the big picture.
Yes,
they've got to be. You don't invest that kind of money.
That's the key.
In the money that they've invested in Vegas, the money they've invested elsewhere, to look at the big picture.
Because you got to protect Derek Carr, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
First and foremost, that's what look, if you can't see that that's a complete goal of the organization to protect Derek Carr, I don't know what's more telling than that right here, than what we're looking at, right?
Okay, so that leads me up to my trivia question for you.
Oh, no. All right.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So,
okay,
let's go back to January 9th, 1977 with a 32-14 victory of the Raiders over the Vikings in Super Bowl 11.
Okay, I'm with you.
Who was the starting line?
Shell, Upshaw, Bueller, Dalby. Oh gosh, I just hit a wall. Shell, Bueller, Shell, Upshaw for sure.
You had it. You had 4 of the 5.
Dalby, Bueller. Oh my gosh, you're gonna say it. I'm gonna get so pissed off at myself. Who is it?
John Vella.
John Vella. Big John Vella. Yes.
Big John Vella.
That's right. Oh, good question, Raj. I like that one. Oh, dang it.
Thank you.
What's 4 out of 5? You're a teacher. What is that?
That's 80%.
So what, I get a B?
That's a B. It's a low B.
It's a low B? Hey, it wouldn't be the first time.
Hey, that would be the highest grade you ever received. Yeah, not bad.
What am I trying to do?
What are you trying to do?
See, this is the thing. You'll get this on the Facebook on the YouTube Live, but this part will be cut out of the podcast because we're going to go right into this.
Hey, just one time, I need it.
Raiders Fan Radio.
Uncle Mosh, I got to say, the chat room is freaking on point. They have hit.
Oh, they nailing it?
I swear, it's like these guys have looked at our show notes here. They know exactly what our segues need to be. So here's so Raven Raider says, thanks for the show, guys. You're welcome. 95 game has a muzzle over its mouth when it comes to Raider talk these days. Absolutely. That's what we're hearing too. So any of the Raiders talk we can bring you guys, absolutely glad to do it. And rumor has it, voice of the Raiders, Greg Papa, is going to the Niners when the Raiders leave Oakland. Touchdown Niners. How the F would that even sound? I agree, Raven Raider. It's a really, really funky thing to think about. And, again, thank you for your segue on this because we have as our interview this week, we have Len Shapiro. Len is the executive director of the Bay Area Radio Sports Hall of Fame, and we talked to Len about that very subject. And so for somebody as plugged in as Len is to give us a firsthand account, again, he's just speculating, but what he thinks is going to go on with Greg Papa, you're going to hear it in the interview, but he thinks Papa's going to go down maybe for a year and then come on back because he's already established in the Bay Area. He's got his radio show in the Bay Area. There's already a Vegas announce team in place, but to kind of continue continuity through, he thinks that Papa's going to go down, do 1 year, and then come on back to the Bay Area. So for you that are on the YouTube live stream, you won't hear the interview. You'll have to check out the podcast for that. So we're going to go ahead and play the podcast. We're going to play that interview for you now with Len Shapiro, and then we will be right back. All right, Uncle Mosh, that was a super cool interview that we had with Len Shapiro. He's awesome. Like I'm a radio kind of like junkie. Like when it comes to broadcasting stuff, I love I can nerd out about a lot of things, Raiders included, but also broadcasting. I kind of nerd out about that stuff and the way that he went over and broke down all those guys that did all those. All the announced teams and kind of how they fit into the whole story of the Raiders. It was pretty cool.
Those guys were amazing. And back in the day, and what was really cool, I grew up in the Bay Area in the 60s and the 70s. So to hear him talking about all those names, I'm like, oh man, I remember that. That was so awesome. It's phenomenal. And like you said, the guy can just spout this stuff off the top of his head. It's unbelievable.
How lucky are we that, growing up when we did, now it's been a long time since I've lived in California and same for you. But growing up, the voices that we had, and I brought this up to Len, I said, is this just, the Homer in me coming out, or have we had a disproportionate amount of amazing announcers throughout time? Bill King and Greg Papa's side, but Lon Simmons and Joe Starkey and Russ Hodges.
Oh my gosh.
Like we've had amazing announce teams in the Bay Area. Some of the all-time greatest have announced for the Bay Area sports teams. I mean, heck, even, Joe Morgan and we're lucky, man.
Lucky.
We've had some really, really cool ones. So do you remember, because you grew up in the 60s and 70s, as you mentioned there, do you remember these guys being and even some of the other guys like Jim Lang? Isn't that the guy that did the dating game?
The dating game. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it's like walking into some place and they're cooking bread and you go, that's grandma's house. You know what I'm saying? It's their voices do that. They bring back that memories, that different time. That's like, wow, I remember that. I remember, hearing that. I remember watching the games on. My mom was a big Giants fan, so I remember watching the Giants games, and she'd turn down the television and turn up the radio.
I swear, if that's not the hallmark of a great announcer, that's exactly what I mentioned to Len about how my dad used to turn that down and then turn up Bill King.
Yeah.
Especially
crazy.
if it was the A's. And now there's something about baseball, and I think that's one of the things that, and obviously wanted to keep it about the Raiders, and I wanted to focus on the importance of Bill King being a Raiders announcer, but there's something a little bit different about baseball because it's practically nightly. And back then, it was before the advent of the internet. It was before how everything. I mean, now we could pull things up on our phone and it's easy peasy. But back then, it was like I said to him, I feel like Bill King narrated my childhood practically.
Yeah,
it was
right.
It was like always on. It was always there, and it was such a comforting thing, you know. And guys like Bill King, man, and you know, and Vince Scully and Jack Buck and these guys. They're just like, they're almost like family members or something. Like it's crazy. And so I think that's cool. Grandma used to do that with the Giants. I didn't know she did that too. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, it was great. And, you know, I mean, I can sit there and I can picture that, because the stereo was behind us and the TV was in front of us. You know, growing up in Willow Glen, there, portion of San Jose, and to just, you know, Juan Marichal with a windup, you know, and then you'd hear that crack of the bat, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
A double play, you know.
Yeah.
Just that, you know, and you know they got a cigarette hanging out of their mouth, and, you know, scotch in their hand, and they're, you know, I mean, it's just
that's cool.
It's amazing. Yeah,
that's awesome. And you know, we didn't get a chance to get into the history of roller derby announcing with Len, but maybe we'll save that for the next time.
We have a go for main engine start. And we have main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery.
Hello, I'm astronaut Jose Hernandez, and you're listening to Sonny and Murph on Raiders Fan Radio.
All right, Raider Nation, thanks again for joining us here on the show. Thanks again for joining us here in Murph's Man Cave for Raiders Fan Radio. Thank you to all of you on the chat, man. This has been a lot of fun. This has gone a little better than I expected.
Yeah.
The guys in the chat are great, and again, the way that they're segueing into the segments has been awesome. All right, so Raiders are going 13-3 this year, Raider Brandon says, and Raider Brandon, it's been a long time since the Raiders had a record that was that good, and one of them was the Raiders' return to excellence, right? When the Raiders finally returned to prominence in the NFL and got within one game of the Super Bowl in the year 2000, and we've been reliving the audio documentary called Return to Excellence, put out by, speaking of Greg Papa, the Ticket 1050, back in like 2002, 2003, something like that. And so we've been going through and doing a cut a week, and we are in the home stretch. We are on cut number 9, which is the second Chiefs, I would call it episode, the second Chiefs cut. And this one is called Crushing the Chiefs, Uncle Mosh.
We hate the Chiefs.
Up next was a rematch with the rival Kansas City Chiefs. This is when the Raider Nation would learn a new medical term, cellulitis. Sebastian Janikowski came down with that affliction, so rookie punter Shane Leckler would have to do double duty.
He will be aided by the hold of Rich Gannon. He must hold now. Snap from Adam True. High. Oh, Gannon pulled it down. Leckler to PAT. It is good. It is good.
Leckler's adventure on the PAT followed up Andre Rison's 10-yard touchdown catch, and the Raiders were up 7-0. That would be just the start of a huge offensive day.
Touchdowns by Zach Crockett and Andre Rison helped the Raiders push out to a 20-7 lead. For a 2-touchdown lead, Zach Crockett up the middle. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Raiders. Again, the pump fake, throws middle, right through Dudley's hands, but caught in the back of the end zone by Rison. Touchdown, Raiders. Right through Dudley's hands, but there was Rison in the back of the end zone with a second touchdown of the afternoon. It is 20-7 Raiders.
Tyrone Wheatley would follow with a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 27-7 Raiders. The route was just getting started as Ricky Dudley got on the board with a 20-yard catch of his own.
It's a play action. Gannon's going to throw, and he's throwing for the end zone, and it is caught by Ricky Dudley. Touchdown, Raiders. What a catch by Dudley. Just shoved Pat Dennis away. No flag. And then Ricky laterals the ball to Lincoln Kennedy, and he spikes it.
With a 34-10 lead, the Raider defense played a little soft in coverage, allowing the Chiefs to come back, at least temporarily. The Chiefs closed the gap to 35-23 before Ricky Dudley said enough of this, and he caught touchdown number 2 on the day.
Second and goal, 2-yard line, play action. Gannon looking left, now middle, going to throw. Nobody's guarding Dudley. He juggled, he holds on. Touchdown, Raiders, and now a reverse dunk over the crossbar by Dudley. This one's over. 41-37 28-24 Raiders.
After completing the season sweep with a hated Kansas City Chiefs, the Raiders were now 4-0 in the 5-game stretch against the AFC West and 8-1 overall, tied for the best record in the American Football Conference. Red hot and rolling, the Raiders now sought revenge of the one team to beat them on the year, the Denver Broncos. But once again, the Raiders fell short against the Broncos. Mike Shanahan upped his personal mark to 11-1 against the Raiders with a 27-24 Monday night win that gave the Broncos a sweep of the season series. The Raiders played that game with some of their key players watching from the sidelines, including running back Tyrone Wheatley, kicker Sebastian Janikowski, and defensive end Lance Johnstone. The Raiders did, however, manage to overcome interceptions, lost fumbles, and a blocked punt that turned into a Denver touchdown to tie the game with just over a minute to go. But Jason Elam kicked a 23-yard field goal as time expired to give the Broncos the 27-24 win.
Gee, thanks for leaving us on a high note there, Greg Papa. Sheesh. We got all this let's kick the crap out of the Chiefs, and then, then we got our asses whipped by the Broncos. Mosh, couple things there. Number one, I think you've had cellulitis.
Sometimes I get it. Sometimes I get it. It's when I try to get healthy and I eat too many vegetables.
That's when you get the cellulitis.
Yeah, and I eat too much celery. It gives you the cellulitis.
You and Sebastian Janikowski have the same body type.
Yeah. Fluffy.
Fluffy. All right, but in all seriousness, a couple things. First off, Ron last week made in his call, we listened to some voicemails last week, and he talked about how in one of those return to excellence about how Gannon scored 3 touchdowns on the ground.
Right.
And he asked the question about Derek Carr, would we see more of that? And
right, I remember
we
that.
kind of skated over that. We didn't answer that. Yeah, I agree. And Ron's speculation was that we're going to see more of that. I agree. You know, the way that the Dallas game ended this last year with with Derek diving through the back of the end zone or the front pylon anyways and losing the ball, the fumble and the touchback and whatnot. You guys know how it ended. But he's really good at that stuff, man. I mean, there's a phenomenal picture of him when he's at Fresno State diving into the end zone. The guy's freaking 5 feet in the air. He's super athletic. So, he's not the kind of guy, it's like he's not a running quarterback, but he's a quarterback that can run, right? And so, yes, you want to see him get out and do a little bit more of that, and I definitely think we're going to see that. Plus, the other thing, too, Ron and Uncle Mosh, too, is that he's so accurate on the run. When he threw that pass against Kansas City on Sunday Night Football, the great comeback, he's running against his body and throwing to the front pylon where he hits Crabtree in the corner of the end zone there. I challenge anybody, when you get done listening to our show, go out in your backyard and try to do that and hit a fence post and see how good you are at doing it. That's an amazingly...
Try to hit the side of a barn.
I know, right? It's a crazy hard throw to make. So Derek can make those throws on the move. So, yes, use his feet. They're going to get him moving a lot more. We're definitely going to see that. Okay, so back to this week's Return to Excellence. Something else that jumped out at me that I hope that we're going to see more of. I thought we were going to see it last year. When we signed Marshawn, I thought he was going to be our, 1-2 yard at a time guy, a guy that's going to score a whole bunch of touchdowns, do what Zach Crockett did, do what Tyrone Wheatley did. You just heard it in that clip. We heard 2 guys that were power runners that got in there, that ground out yards, that ground out touchdowns behind a big offensive line. Why our offensive coordinators last year, Todd Downing, did what he did, man, I don't know. It will forever puzzle all of us. But that was one of the things. I'm like, why don't we use Marshawn like we used to use Wheatley and like we used to use Crockett? And I forget the numbers off the top of my head, but Zach Crockett in 2002 had 10 touchdowns for 100 yards or something stupid like that. Don't hold me to the numbers, Raider Nation, but the point is that he was the guy that when they got close, it was just over. They knew what you were going to do. You knew what you were going to do, and it didn't matter. You lined up and you punched it in there. That's what we need to do this year with Marshawn and with Doug Martin. That needs to be the new version of Zach Crockett and Tyrone Wheatley. We just heard it, what they did in the year 2000, and they need to damn do it in 2018. Mosh, what do you think?
Well, number one thing that more people complained about last year during the season, other than the hook and ladder, was...
or pitching it back to Marshawn on 4th and 2?
Pitching it...
to turn it into a 4th and 6? Yeah, that was
what? It was
brutal.
Well, think about it, Raider Nation. The misuse of Marshawn.
Oh
my goodness.
Yeah.
What were we thinking?
Yeah, it was terrible.
You know?
They weren't. It cost them their jobs too. Right?
I loved hearing that touchdown Raiders.
Yeah,
you know, I'm thinking, is he going to go touchdown Niners? You know, it's not going to happen.
So weird, man.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. We certainly hope not.
No.
Ron, excuse me. Ron's in the chat room talking about Derek Carr being nimble, asking about play action. Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, I don't remember what the stats were again off the top of my head, but it's single digits the amount of play action the Raiders ran last year. It was so few and far between, and that's how you get defenses guessing. It's how you get them moving around. You know what I mean? You have to run play action. It's how you generate deep balls. You know, and so we're definitely going to see a lot of that, I think, this year with Gruden. All right, Raider Noel, a couple more here before we move on. Raider Noel, I think Lynch runs great out of the power. I agree. I mentioned that using the 6 offensive linemen with guys like Denver Kirkland, and obviously with tight ends like Lee Smith, Derek Carrier, we're going to run up and run a lot of power. Keith Smith, friend of the show.
And a great interview.
I might say, is he our best friend of the show?
He's my best friend of the
show. But, yeah, great guy, Keith Smith, former guest here on Raiders Fan Radio. That's why the Niners signed. Lord have mercy. Shoot me right now.
Can we cut that?
Yeah, we'll have to. That's why it's because you got me all this Niner talk with Greg Papa. You're messing me up.
I just scribbled it out with the Sharpie.
All right, so that's why the Raiders signed him, was to get in there and to run that short yardage, run that short distance. And you know, the guy can even carry the ball too. So I think we're going to see a lot of short yardage stuff. Let's see. We're going to get Martin in his peak and not his 2-year valley. Hopefully so. You know, Doug Martin has certainly had an up-and-down career. That's from Raider Brandon. 2 more. Ron Stratton. There was a call in the game when the Raiders were on the goal line, and the announcer said, everyone in the world knows when it's coming, and Crockett slammed it in.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what we're talking about. Great call, Ron. Yeah, that's what the Raiders need to get back to, and hopefully they do. All right, well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Raiders Fan Radio here in Murph's Fan Cave. If you haven't listened to us for a couple of weeks, we are kind of diversifying a little bit. We're turning this thing into a little bit of a network. We're going Murph's Man Cave featuring Raiders Fan Radio is our flagship show, but we also got some more shows coming at you. Talked to our good friend Chuck McCann, president of the New Jersey chapter of the Black Hole, just this morning via email, and they have their show going into production soon. So you're going to hear a Raiders Booster Club show here in Murph's Fan Cave. So it should be pretty cool. I'm actually really looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
Chuck's a great guy, great member of Raider Nation, and he and his Booster Club, New Jersey chapter of the Black Hole, definitely holding it down in the Northeast, representing Raider Nation. So what?
You know, Murph. I just want to say that we do our part for social issues here in Murph's Fan Cave.
Okay.
And I'm all about promoting things that help the planet.
You've been known for that.
I've been known for that. You know, I take away the fact that I invented the plastic water bottle. The fact that you missed one of the Oateses.
Who did I miss? What oat did I miss?
Stephanie Oakes Roach.
You don't know who that is.
I do.
That's why you've been messing around on your phone over there. You've been trying to out-Oates me.
Actually, her name isn't Oates. It's Oakes. But when I had her as a student and coached her for 4 years, we used to call her Quaker because Oakes sounded like oats, and she was too short to call tree. But, you know,
all right.
She just released recycled toilet paper.
Oh, jeez.
And it's
no, she did not.
Elemental recycled products. She just released.
You can't recycle toilet paper.
It's not the paper that's recycled. It's toilet paper made out of recycled paper, which is kind of cool.
Nah, man. I'm not doing that.
Man, you know how bad I am on the internet. It took me an hour to look that up on Facebook.
I don't mean to poo-poo it, but you can't just...
All right, that's a crappy segment. Okay.
You can't just fold it up on it.
Don't piss me off. Okay.
I don't give a shit. All right, Raider Nation, thanks for checking in with us this week. Appreciate you checking out Raiders Fan Radio. You can find everything that we do at RaidersFanRadio.com. We are available on all podcast services. T-shirts are going fast.
Oh my gosh, I got to get a number because we'll post it You'll post it. I'll get that kid that runs my media to post it.
Yeah. Get some stuff together. We'll get you a list of how many we got left because we only got we mentioned last week got a handful left, and we have a smaller handful of those left now. So thank you for supporting the show that way by buying a T-shirt. Less than $20 by the time you get tax in and ship it. You can find those at RaidersFanRadio.com. Uncle Mosh, you want to give us your social media update? Uncle_Mosh.
Is that what it is?
That's what it is, yeah. At Twitter.
You're supposed to hand me a piece of paper.
Yeah. So you're at Uncle_Mosh. You can find me _Murph.
Okay.
Or you can find us at Raiders Fan Radio on Twitter.
Is that on the twit?
That's on the twit,
okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's our fan book. I can't talk today, man.
You can't talk today.
There's our Facebook.
You know why you can't talk today? Because it's hot.
It is freaking stupid hot.
We're down. For those of you that don't know, we're down in Tennessee, and little did you know that Tennessee is only a quarter mile from the sun.
Quarter mile from the sun, and it's 97% humidity outside.
Yeah. It's awful.
It's awful.
It's miserable down here.
It's goofy hot. So yes, I'm turning me into a little bit of a mumble mouth. So, but anyways, Raiders Fan Radio Facebook page. Man, remember when we had the contest to get it to 3,000 likes? It's like almost to 3,200 now. Like, you guys rock, man.
Yeah.
The chat room is still blowing up over here. Thank you so much for the support.
And thanks for all the support from last week's show. My welcome back show hit it out of the ballpark.
I guess we ought to say that between you and Obi Melifonwu, we had the highest rated show we've ever had. You guys edged out Pete Koch. And so you know what? Pete Koch, Raider
he wants
alumni,
to come back, doesn't he?
Well, he's coming back. I reached out to him, and Pete, real quick before we go, Pete is going to attend the Alumni Week. The Raiders are one of the few teams that do a really cool Alumni Week where they bring in past players and they host them, and basically they hang out for the week of training camp.
Sweet.
And mentor the younger guys. Good opportunity for them to get around and meet a lot of the fans, whatnot. Well, Pete's part of that group going up this year. He lives in L.A. and he's going up to Napa there for Alumni Week. So Pete agreed to come and join us once again on the show when he gets back from training camp. So we're going to have a really cool firsthand account, not only of what's going on the field, but what's going off the field, all the pageantry and all the cool stuff that goes around an event like that. So that should be pretty neat getting Pete back on. So
yeah, that'll be awesome.
He might have a chance to edge you guys back out. Right now, you and Obi are in the top slot.
Obi, are you listening? We may have to do another one.
But that'll be coming up. The training camp opens for rookies July 23rd and opens for veterans July 26th. So we'll get Pete, I'd imagine, the week after that. So
okay.
So look
for
that
1st of August.
For that 1st of August. So that should be pretty fun. So all right. So thanks again, Raider Nation. We love you guys. You're the best. Uncle Mosh, you got any parting words of wisdom for us before we go?
Hey, watch those donuts. Yeah. That's a flashback reference to last week's show.
There you go. Yeah. Uncle 28, they call you.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Absolutely. It was a great week. We look forward to it the second week of July next week and when we do our show.
Yeah.
And another hotbed of Raider news.
Yeah. The offiest of the offseason. That's the tagline this week. Raiders Fan Radio. We're here during the offiest of the offseasons.
We're the awfulest during the offseason.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.